Good evening, everybody. This is OL Nation. Welcome, Lawrencians, past, the present, the future, and friends of Lovedale. I am Rohan Shetty, Vindhya, 1986. On behalf of the OL Lawrencians Association, your association, and the Super OL Nation Working Group, the team behind all of this, I would like to thank you for tuning in, for your suggestions, comments, introductions, and more over the last year. I'm happy to present to you Session 11, which is focused on India's horse racing ecosystem and a number of accomplished OL Lawrencians. Just to remind you, OL Assembly, our variety entertainment program, runs on the second Saturday of every month, and our professional program, this one, OL Nation, runs on the fourth Saturday of every month, 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Don't forget to tune in all the time, and if you would like to be in touch with us, communicate on olalovdale@gmail.com or any of our many social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. Be in touch with us in case you don't hear from us, in case you've got our messages from your friends and other batchmates. Communicate with us, let us have your latest contact details, and we will be in touch with you. And now, I would like to welcome Krishnadev Aravali 1982 on behalf of the OLA to share a few words with us. Several of us knew him as Pradeep Reddy. Welcome, Pradeep, to the program.
Thank you, Rohan. Good evening, OL Lawrencians. I am Krishnadev Rao of the batch of 1982, and Rohan has for some reason chosen me to represent the OL Lawrencians Association at this evening's OL Nation. Before I speak about the OLA though, I would like to touch upon the serendipity of being invited to speak at this particular OL Nation, in which the topic is centered around those magnificent creations of nature, horses. My batch of 1982 has a very special immediate connection with the horses at school. We were able to collect and donate all the money required to completely refurbish and rebuild the school stables, something which we are immensely proud to have been able to do. Now about the OL Lawrencians Association. I am in the singular position of, while not being an elected member of the committee, but by invitation of the president, Johnny Paul, I'm a slightly noisy fly on their wall at their weekly committee meetings. I am therefore privy to the magic that goes on behind the scenes of our association. The thoughts, the plans, the parlays, and the execution, all towards making the OLA vibrant and relevant to us, the OL Laurentian community. These last 12 months especially has seen the OLA outdo itself. In these pandemic-fueled times of lockdowns and curfews, the OLA has reached out to each one of us directly, wherever we may be around the world, with some of the most interesting, informative, and germane programming, far exceeding any of our expectations. Hats off to our President Johnny Paul and our Vice President Elizabeth Beliapa for harnessing and bringing together such committed, creative, energetic OL Laurentians who so selflessly give up their time and resources. Since that very first OL Assembly in May 2020, exactly a year ago, we've had an incredible 22 events, this OL Nation being the 23rd. And it's in this connection, I have an appeal to you from the OLA. The OLA needs you. Both the OL Assembly team as well as the OL Nation team would welcome help. So please do come forward and volunteer your creativity, ideas, and technical skills, and join either the OL Assembly or the OL Nation creative teams. But if time is at a premium, you could just be involved by participating in the events, by sharing your stories, recording your songs, and showcasing your talent. If you are interested, please write to olalovedale@gmail.com. I repeat, olalovedale@gmail.com. And at the very least, please tune in and get your batchmates and friends too to tune in to watch the programs. That's the best kind of appreciation we can show the hardworking teams who put these together for us. Don't forget, the next event is the OL Assembly. It is an anniversary special on Founders, so make sure you tune in on Saturday, the 8th of May at 5 p.m. Before I sign off, I have some very sad news to share. We've lost our third old Lawrentian to COVID. Dr. Vinu Ganapathy, 1974, passed away in Florida in September 2020. Hinfas Habib, of the batch of 2001, left us at the beginning of April. And now, Dhanush Deepan, of the batch of 1992, passed last week. We've also lost another dear old Laurentian, R. Sundar, of the batch of 1968, just 4 days ago to a heart attack. Our thoughts and prayers go out to their families, friends and batchmates. Please remain extremely careful and take good care of yourselves, everyone. Thank you. And now, back to you, Rohan.
Thank you for that, Pradeep. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting painting you have behind you as your backdrop. I understand it's called Intizar and painted by your better half. Is that a subliminal message to OLs? We're waiting for you, OLs. Look forward to your being in touch with us. Well, we now have the Headmaster, Mr. Prabhakaran Nair, speaking to us about the equestrian and related activities at Lovedale. Thank you, sir, once more for taking the time to participate, especially with all the additional stress that you have to handle during this latest lockdown in the state of Tamil Nadu and the rest of the country. Thank you once more for being here and welcome, Mr. Prabhakaran.
The Lawrence School Lovedale equestrian team is quite renowned in Indian equestrian field. Many top riders and trainers in India were a part of this sport, which is an achievement making the alma mater proud. In the recent past, before COVID-19 pandemic, the school witnessed 277 students opted for equestrians as their important sport. We boast with a tremendous infrastructure for stable for 24 horses as well as 2 grounds. The school has multiple training terrains extending to a vast stretch of areas. At the moment, we have about 23 horses, which 21 are thoroughbred horses and 2 indigenous white Marwari horses. They are managed by 3 staff and kept well by 11 grooms and 2 cleaners. Of course, Lovedale is a member of Equestrian Federation of India, commonly known as EFI, and is among the oldest schools in the country to be affiliated with EFI. And we compete with various IPSC teams. In 2019-20, the school participated in Wellington Gymkhana horse show and we got medals in almost all events which we have participated. 2 of our school riders participated in several regional horse show qualifying for Junior National Equestrian Championship. Ayana of class 9 was placed individually 4th in short jumping accumulator among 110 individual competitors, and Shivakumaran of class 9th was placed 8th among the 110 competitors in short jumping normal event. Both of them have brought laurels to the school after 6 years. The school students are trained by HOD riding Mr. Satpal Prakash from NBA and Mr. Vignesh Rao, certified Federation Equestrian International, who is among one of the only 2 Indians to do FEI coaching for coaches on in Olympic discipline. At present, the horses are being kept fit and the work is going on. The school will provide more opportunities to the students in the next future for various competitions. We are determined to develop equestrian team steadily. We are waiting eagerly for this COVID-19 situation to get over and to get into a great work in this equestrian team. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that update. And I'm really glad to hear that all of this is happening at school. And we really do hope that things get back to normal once again, sooner the better, and that the children can get back to their routines. I mean, for me, it's more than a pleasant surprise to hear that over 200 students choose equestrian activities while at school. I look forward to seeing you next month on both the OL Assembly as well as OL Nation. Thank you, sir. Let's get moving now to the starting blocks. And to take us there, as always, is Kalpana Kuttaiah, Pankaj 1980, your host for this event. Welcome, Kalpana, once more, and over to you.
Thank you, Rohan, and hello, everyone. For most of us who lived through days in Ooty, we can never forget the vast expanse of the Ooty racecourse, and a few of us even attempted riding while we were young. For this session of OL Nation, we'll have many Lawrencians across many batches who are involved in one way or another of putting a horse on a course. To get us started, I'm very happy to introduce as moderator and speaker my classmate and my very dear friend for 46 years, Zeyn Mirza, batch of 1980, Sumeru House. For Zeyn and his brother Hasneyn, also an Lawrentian, batch of 1975, Arvali House, horse breeding and racing is in their blood, in their DNA, and in their family for generations. They started their own stud farm shortly after school while still in college. Zeyn has been headhunted by Vijay Malaya and has been the managing director of United Racing and Bloodstock Breeders Limited, URBB for short, since 2005. Over the past 15 years, URBB has been the most successful racing and breeding operation in India. The historical Kunigal Stud Farm is the breeding division of URBB that has been amongst the top 3 in the country for several years, including a championship title in 2016. The racing operation that Zeyn manages comprises at any given time about 100 horses with trainers and all racing centers in India. Since 2003, URBB has won over 1,200 races and over 100 classics, and they have also campaigned successfully overseas. His role as racing manager involves interacting and mentoring trainers and jockeys, race selection, planning, and strategy. In addition to being a racing manager, a breeder, a sports administrator, Zeyn is also a leader who served in the managing committee of the Bangalore Turf Club and in various other industry committees. With this introduction, over to you, Zeyn, to take us into your world of horse racing.
Thank you, Kalpana, for that introduction. Now, for the uninitiated, I will just give you a quick overview of the racing and breeding industry. And this is where it all starts, at a stud farm, where horses are bred and raised till the age of 2 years, when they are then sold to owners who give them to professional licensed trainers to channel their energies and hone their ability and perform, preferably at the highest level. And then the circle of life is complete when the mares retire back to stud to breed. It's a selective process of breeding that we are trying to create a superior athlete. So we try and breed the best, do the best, and then, as the saying goes, hope for the best. Without boring you with too many stats, I will just touch upon some numbers that will put things in perspective. We have 9 racing centers in India that house over 3,500 horses in training. Each year, about 70 stud farms produce 1,500 foals that go into training at the age of 2 years and race till the age of about 5 or 6. All India, we conduct racing about 350 days a year and hold about 3,000 races in all. Of these 3,000 races, only 100 races are prestige races in which the best participate. And these include what we call the classics, such as derbies and oaks and guineas. But there is only one Indian derby held each year at Mumbai for horses aged 4 years. I will now introduce you to several OLs who are involved in various aspects of this industry, who have been super successful, and they will also give you an insight as to the hows and whys and what drives them.
1, 2, 3.
Roll sound.
Roll camera.
Lights.
Action!
Cut, yeah. You guys haven't grown up only.
Pritham Basapa VIN 1977. You were introduced to racing at a very young age. Can you tell us where it all started?
Yeah, Zeyn, well, I was born into a family who's been racing for generations. And I was born into spent a lot of my time on the lap of a racing environment in terms of, people around the house, my family, and everybody you started meeting. And as I grew up over the years, by the time I was 8 or 9, I was familiarizing myself with the race book and pedigrees and performance and challenging myself to pick winners. And it was at that time, I think this was just before my schooling at Lawrence, that I first got introduced to actually witnessing live racing, and that was at the Ooty race course, which was a summer capital of people who went for holidays in the south of the Vindhyas. Very affluent, elitist, glitzy company. There was royalty, there were power brokers, industrialists, and everybody was having a good time. And that was my sort of introduction to racing in terms of the actual performance of horses and the spectatorship, which was the sport of kings. So that was my first introduction over my first decade of my life, where I was pretty much knowledgeable to a certain extent in terms of what racing was.
Fabulous. So, Nosher Cama, 1976, was 1 year your senior, same house, Vindhya House. We've got him joining us from on Zoom. Hi, Nosher.
Hi.
Hi guys, hi. Nice seeing all of you. Well, I got into racing not so much through school, but my affinity to horses. School, when I was there, didn't really have a great equestrian program, but we had a lot of riding, and that was a great outlet for us who liked the outdoors. I had a few relatives in racing, and I think that was one of the reasons I really enjoyed and used to sneak off to the races, even though I was underage, and watch the races. And from there it just went on, and I got an introduction to Mr. Bairamji, who was my boss and my mentor. And from there I got into racing. Oh, that was a bit of luck, winning the Indian Derby at such a young age. My boss, Mr. Bairamji, sent me to Bombay with 3 of his best horses, which I had under my charge. And I was lucky enough to win the Derby at that young age. Though that is the apex race, and I'd love to win it again. We all go through hard times here, but we just don't give up. Never give in has always been in the back of our minds because it's shaped us from school. The Derby may have been 35, 38 years ago, but I'll still never stop trying to win it again.
Thanks, Kama. Thanks for your time. Arjun Mangalorkar, Vindhya, 1990. Arjun, your father was a very successful trainer in his time, and you decided to follow in his footsteps. When did you decide that?
Well, Zeyn, I was literally born in a stable. And being born in a stable, I had two choices. Either become Jesus Christ or a horse trainer. I don't think I could make Jesus Christ. So here I am.
Come on, man! Come on, you forward! Come on, you forward! Come on, you forward! Come on, you forward!
I've been training horses for the past 20 odd years. And for the last 7-8 years, I can say I've been training about 50 to 60 horses each year. Essentially, my job is to keep them healthy, sound, both mentally and physically, and get them to do their best whenever they race, which is generally between 3 to 4 weeks. We start racing our horses at the age of 2, and they race till the age of 5 to 6. The prime years of a horse's racing career is between 3 and 4, when you run for the premier races, that is the classics and the terms races. And one really targets the horse for the Indian Derby, which is the greatest race, both prestige-wise and financially. And everyone generally aims to win that race, and we work backwards from them and program our horses to run in races that give them their lead-ups and try to get them to be their best on the Indian Derby day. And along the way, we come across a lot of disappointments and things going wrong, and sometimes you get it right and you pick up races along the way, and generally that's our target.
Right. So now we have Apana Subaiya, Vindhya 1988. I didn't realize that you got into racing. Your first horse was in partnership with Pritham.
Actually, it was in a syndicate, Zeyn. We knew each other. I know Gautam and Sanjeev, they're my neighbors. My grandfather owned Gymkhana horses. My father owned horses. But to get into the sport, you still need somebody to help you. And we formed a syndicate, mainly of Lawrencians and some Madras Christian guys. And it was for 4-5 years, Pritham. We had a couple of horses. Yes. And we did not too bad. We were fine. I'm still in the sport, so I guess we did well.
Oh, don't we know you're still in the sport? And now we have Anneka, Sumeru, 1999. You're married to a trainer, a young trainer, Nevill Darashah. How did you meet him, or were you already involved in racing?
I met him in college, straight after school at St. Joseph's College, Commerce College in Bangalore. And I think we just fell in love and been together ever since. So we've literally grown up together. And that's how I really got into the racing family. And my father-in-law is also a very famous trainer. And of course, Neil is also up and coming. Good times, very exciting as well. But I think that's what keeps it ticking and going.
But on your side of the family, there was no direct...
No direct racing. However, I do remember my first time at a race course. My grandfather took me when I must have been about 11 or 12 to the BTC. There must have been something happening there. So I do remember that. And my in-laws knew my grandfather as well. Little did I know we'd be actually married into the family, and it just all turned out the way it did.
Right.
But that's the history.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll come to my brother, Dr. Hasneyn Mirza, Aravali, 1975. Now, I think my introduction is going to be longer than his answer, because I have to say, you know, he's a vet, probably the most accomplished and sought-after vet in the country. People call him the jet-set vet also. And what's interesting about a vet is that he doesn't have a patient that can tell him what's wrong. He has to diagnose and treat. And what you find even more fascinating is that he's a dentist, he's an ophthalmologist, he's a gynecologist, he's a gastroenterologist, he's an orthopedic, and he's all of these things rolled into one. I mean, when he treats your horses, you know that, you know? So how do you manage all these things,
well,
all aspects?
You've got no choice, because there's really not very much that you can do. If you're called, they say call the vet, so the vet has to go there and he has to be able to diagnose the issue and deal with it. Because the owner wants the horse treated, and you just have to do whatever you got to do. And I can say that, you know, we've been fortunate now that we have a lot of diagnostic equipment and things to help us. But earlier it was very, very difficult, and you had to rely on lots of other things to make a correct diagnosis.
Right, we've got Nevill Devlaliwala with us, Vindhya 1992.
Hi, Nevill.
Nevill, how are you?
Hi guys, good to see all of you. When it comes to horses, everybody thinks that what they're buying is going to be good. Nobody thinks it's a bad buy. But then luck is a very predominant factor in racing. You may buy the best, and I know a lot of people who bought good horses in large numbers over a period of time, yet not tasted the success in the manner which they would want to. So I seriously think luck is far more important than smart investment in this field. To start with, it's a passion. And yes, everybody wants to make money out of it. Because you're putting in big money, you want to make money out of it. Why not? So it's good when you're doing something that you like and you get to make money out of it too. And I've been lucky with a couple of my horses. See, horse racing is very similar to the stock market in more ways than one, because it's not just pure gambling as in both stock market. You look at fundamentals in both things. You're also, just as a stock market, you'd possibly look at the promoter, the stock, what are the orders for the company and stuff. That same is the case with horses. The yard that it comes from, the pedigree of the horse, how well has it raced before, or is it first time? All those factors come in before you actually put out money. It's not like a roll of a dice and you say 7 up or 7 down. It doesn't work that way. So there is a method to the madness. For people outside, yes, it's gambling, but for people in the know, I think it's a good application of mind, and that's when you put your money out. Arunda was a great horse, but let's put it this way, you know, we always knew he was good to start with, and I tend to try and recover my money on the first start of my horses if I think they're good, because you know, there's somewhere down the line you want to cover some of the money that you have spent. And we had a massive punt in him first start in Bombay, and he just walked out of the gates. He just didn't raise a gallop, and that is one episode I've really never got over. So I was just too shocked about what he did, and then to think about what he went on to do after that. He won the Derby, he won the Invitation, he won so many Group 1s. After that, he picked up what, 6.5 CR in stake money, and that first start has always been an absolute enigma.
Okay, Nevill, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on. And Sanjeev Basapa, Aravali 1984. Sanjeev, you've been involved in riding and horses in the sport for many years now. Your parents were involved in it. What was your introduction to racing in particular?
Zeyn, like my dad, dad was in racing since the 1950s. And so obviously when I was born, he was already owner of many horses. And I remember as a kid going with him to the race course every evening, walking around, going to the stables. They would discuss, with the trainer just before the race. And this got me really excited, and I wanted to be involved in it a lot. Here I am. And
great. Fantastic. Thanks, Sanjeev. That was nice. And now we've got Arun Alagapan joining us. Aravali 1993.
Hi, Arun.
Hi guys, good to see you all. Guess you all are all safe and all good in Bangalore. If you're in a meeting and your horse is running, and that too my trainer sends me an SMS, from Bangalore, and I don't even know if the horse has got a chance. And he just sends me an SMS, and I said, what race is it? He says, no, it's only a handicap race. I said, that's fine. What time is it? And he says at 2:30. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to be sitting in one of these meetings at 2:30. And the people had come from outside, I was sitting there. By 2:27, I was getting so nervous. Actually, I was not participating at all in this meeting. So I decided I'll take a break. So I told them I've got some urgent work. I went out, and did, and saw the race and saw my horse not finishing anywhere though. And then came back, to it. At least I was satisfied I could see the race. So these are the funny things that happen with racing. So, basically, racing actually was more a thing that I got into after 2015-16. I went for the invitation, which was in Chennai after a very long time actually. And that time it was January, and I said I must look at starting to own a horse. So, at that time, Dr. Kuttaiah gave me a horse and said, if you like it, why don't you race it? So that was the first horse I had, and so it was already a class 1 horse. And basically it was already racing. Choosing my trainer also wasn't a big thing, because he said you can use my trainer. That's how I got introduced to a trainer as well. And I started racing with the horse. His name was Sailor, and he did pretty well for me that season. And that's when I went to a stud farm in Coimbatore, and met Mr. Pati there, who who's interested in breeding horses. And he says, you come too late, but here are some horses, and you can, if you like any of these, there were 3 left. By then all the horses had gone, and he said, you can take one. I said, I like one of those horses. He said, you can take it. And I remember him trying to tell me this is a Lucifer Sam. Now I didn't know what it was. I don't know, so he said this is a bloodline. I didn't know bloodlines back then. It was just that I chose a horse, came back, and I said, okay, what do you name the horse? So, I just looked at the horse and I said, I hope it runs fast. So, I named it, I said, let's call it fast horse in some language. This is nice. So I translated in Google, named it Cavallo Veloce, which means fast horse. And it did become one of India's fast horses. It did, that horse actually literally made me enjoy my racing. And I think I'm in racing because of that horse, because once you get a horse like that, you'll never leave. And that's the thing, you get so hooked to racing. And I think now it's been nearly, I've had him since 2016. And it's been 5 years and 5-6 years. So he's a 7-year-old now, still going strong, still winning. And winning some of the big races in India. So I guess from then you go on, and then this never stops. You want to get the next Cavallo Veloce. And it'll keep happening. You think you'll get the next Derby winner, and you'll keep going on like this. So in effect, you start building your string. Yeah, and in full shares, I think I've got 20 horses now at the moment. Superstitions is a funny thing, and everybody's got their superstitions. Standing in one place, going and watching a race from some place, and the first big race I won, I had my specs had got chipped on that day, and so I was wearing this specs every time. So Mr. Mirza, Zeyn, he actually found this out. But I guess everybody's got it. I see enough people in the race course standing on one side of it, wearing a certain tie, wearing a certain jacket. I've got one of my friends who was my senior in school also, who's won a race, Nevill, and Nevill who'll wear one jacket and, literally, a torn pair of jeans, but he'll still wear the same thing, because that is what his horse, Allender, apparently won with. So I guess everybody got superstitions in racing.
That's great, Arun. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time. So, Pritham, you've owned a lot of horses in your time. You've been a private breeder. You've had a lot of success as a private breeder as well. I mean, tell us what your journey was like.
Well, as I was mentioning earlier, Zeyn, I joined Lawrence when I was 10 years old, and I was advised very strongly to get into equestrian activities. Our infrastructure was pretty abysmal. We had 4 or 5 horses, a couple of ponies. The ponies for beginners who didn't have very far to fall. But that was what it is. But what it taught me was communication with a horse, maybe partnering a horse, and the physique of a horse. What's it all about? Post that, after I finished school, I mean, it was pretty uneventful as far as equestrian activities goes. We had our rides in into Ooty, etc. Post that, we came back. I was very much hooked into the sport, and I started to get into Gymkhana racing. And I started riding there, and 2 of my you and Dr. Mirza were my mates in riding. Of course, the hero was Dr. Mirza, who modeled himself on Lester Piggott, and his style of his style of riding and everything was Lester Piggott. Lester Piggott was his hero, and well, anyway, it was great fun, and I must say that we used to have the handicap system in Gymkhanas where the good horses started right at the back and the worse off horses were in front. And I had a very horrific or a spectacular crash where two horses crashed into each other. And fortunately, I was taken away in an ambulance, but fortunately I got away with a bruised ego and that was it. So that was as far as Gymkhana goes. And then I got into racing as such. And initially, which was the mid-80s, I got into owning horses, but it was more as a representative of the family. And it wasn't until 1990 that I owned a horse in my own right. And funnily enough, that horse won its first race. And, I was, the hook had gotten deeper and deeper and deeper into racing. Coming back to your question about private breeding, so I had got this band of mares which were boarded at Kunigal Stud Farm, and I used to breed with 5, 7, 8 mares, and one of the mares produced a horse which my trainer at that time told me was very special. We went to Chennai for the Hindu Sprinters Cup. Didn't think that the horse. We were very confident, but the public at large and the professionals didn't think she had very much of a chance. She came and won. And that was something amazing. I was walking on air for about 3 days. Imagine having the fastest horse in the country, bred from a small band of horses that I owned, and the best sprinter in the country for that year. So it was an amazing feeling. And it was literally walking on air. So at about 2005, again I had a mare who bred a young filly, and I was looking for somebody new with a fresh, enthusiastic look about racing. And if I remember correctly, I spoke with you, I spoke to Martin, and about who should I go to and what should I do. And I think one of the names thrown around was Arjun. Now, as it happened, Arjun's an old Lawrencian, very much junior to me. So one of the attractions was that he was junior, so I could bully him a lot. So I called him up one evening and I said, I've got this filly, go have a look at it. And if you like her, take her and train her. So, the next thing I knew, she was in a stable, and that was what started my journey with Arjun. And we immediately clicked as a team. And when she started working, a funny incident, that I was on my treadmill one morning and called, every time your trainer calls you at 8 o'clock, it's either good news or bad news. So I picked up the phone and he didn't say anything. He just said, hi, I think you've got one of the best horses in India. And I nearly, fell off the chair. I said, does this guy know what he's talking about? So anyway, I said, okay, great. Now the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And we went to, she raced the first time.
First couple of times.
First time, disappointment. Second time, disappointment. I said, this guy is...
Something's up.
Well, there's something wrong here. I mean, she's nowhere near the best horse forget the India, she's nowhere near the best horse in Bangalore. Well, we carried on with that.
Again, never given.
Never given. We ran the fourth race of her career she won, or the third race of the career she won. And then he straight away said, we'll run the guineas. She ran the 1,000 guineas and just lost by the shortest of heads. So I said, okay, this Laurentian knows maybe a little bit. He's at least coming up to something. And then we ran the derby. And, she was last all through the race. In the last maybe 30% of the race, she just flew and won. That was my second unbelievable feeling. I couldn't, it was again walking on air for many days. And I truly believed that I had a horse which was truly, truly special. And I was pretty sure we'll win the Bangalore Derby. We ran second to a very good horse, Paddy's horse. And I was extremely, extremely disappointed, and I sent a message to him, let's meet up in the evening. Came over and we had a couple of beers, and he says, shall we go to Calcutta? So I said, for what? Is there some sightseeing you want to do? So he said, no, I meant the horse. So we went to Calcutta and won the race in near record timing, which was another reason to go absolutely gung-ho. And we again thought that things will really go well. Unfortunately, she went for the Indian Derby and she had a problem there physically, and she couldn't perform to our expectations. So I would just say that, never give in is something we should always believe in. It's never lose that passion to win, that commitment to excel, and the commitment to compete and do extremely, extremely well in whatever you're doing. So racing has been a real eye-opener in a sense that in so many different spheres which you can compare to life. And I'm completely, completely passionate about the sport, and I do hope that I have many more years to give to the sport and to myself and to my young trainer here.
Right. So that was really interesting. Now, Apana, you have had an amazing run with Warhammer. Tell us the story.
Actually, my story is completely different from Pritham's. My knowledge of racing is quite minimal. And although I'd gotten on the syndicate, one of the things I learned quite quickly is that unless you have a buck in the game more seriously, you don't learn what's happening. So a few years later, along with Sanjeev's brother Pritham Basapa, we had started buying one share out of 4 in horses. One of them, Cantabria, was with another batch of 82, Captain Andrew Basin. 3 of us were Lawrencians. And I never thought there'll be anything bigger. I always thought the classic horses and the classic winners were like 2-3 levels ahead of us. And we were buying one fourth share of a horse. It went on till we picked up this horse, Warhammer. And in its first race itself, the way it moved from the back and moved forward, there was suddenly a buzz everywhere. And I had, from being just another horse owner who'd come there, stand there, loved going to the paddock when a horse like Cantabria won, loved going and standing with the thing, but never thought that we were in this other part of this game. And there was suddenly this exposure to what a fancy horse is or a good horse is and what it can do for you in racing. And because suddenly there was talk about, are you going to be entering it in the Colts? Are you going to be entering it in the Derby? And these were words that I never thought would happen in my lifetime with a horse. Warhammer, at that time, there was another horse being trained by Arjun, again from Kunigal, called Impavid, and owned by a Lawrentian. And there was a little buzz coming that these were the 2 horses that were going to be the big ones of the year. And in the Bangalore season, the Bangalore summer season usually sets the trend for the rest of the year. There was a lot of hype about Warhammer. There was a lot of also hype about Impavid. And I think one of the things that benefited us is like today what we are doing with TCG Studios, doing a clip on racing. TCG also had done stuff on Warhammer and Impavid, which took the story of these horses to a larger audience. Something like 300,000-400,000 people were watching these clips. And both horses were owned by small owners. These were not the traditional owners who had paid a huge amount of money. These were small owners who were suddenly had something that was pretty good. And Warhammer won the Colts, which is a really big race, and I thought that was going to be the highlight of my life. And the next thing we knew, the horse had a lot of injuries. And so from this high that we were here, and I'm talking here now, completely as a novice, never thought I would even be going up to get a big trophy or a grade 1 race. It suddenly, everything came crashing down. There's not going to be any derbies, there's not going to be anything more. And that's when we suddenly realized as quickly as it comes, it goes away. The actual physical ailments of it, doctor would be able to tell us more about Warhammer's ailments, but with a very good care that we got from him, he did come back, and it was still, there was this question mark whether this was really a classic horse. Did it just win the Colts? And is it a good horse? It'll run a mile, 1,600 meters, do it well, but could it really go up to 2,400 meters and win the big races? On Jan 26th, Warhammer wins in Bangalore, the Bangalore Derby. It still was a great story, but I don't think it had yet become a legend, because the next week, the trainer took the call, we as the connections of the horse took the call to send it for the Indian Derby. Now, I'd never been to Bombay, I'd never seen an Indian derby before. This is something which I would hope the crowds can come back in. They call Bombay the maximum city, but you've got to see the vibrancy in Mahalakshmi on Indian Derby Day. The crowds are phenomenal. They're very knowledgeable about racing. It is something which is at a different level. Warhammer was there. Usually it takes 3 weeks for a horse to recover, and we were sending it 1 week later. Small owners maybe, are we getting greedy? Are we expecting too much from the horse? Warhammer did not worry about any of that, came in, did its work, won by 7/8 lengths, and it was one of these moments saying that how lucky can you get? 3 derbies in a month's time. You know, and for somebody, especially for me, Gautam had been a trainer, had a longer history with horses. For somebody like me, it was something new, completely new. And I do believe that, as Pritham says about the never give in, but for me something else in all that happened also was the school tie. Every bit of it had some connection back to school. Starting with the syndicate where I got into racing, later on with Gautam, getting Warhammer from you, from Kunigal. When Warhammer was injured, although Empowered was being trained by Arjun, he used to send me WhatsApp messages on course of what to do for the horse to recover. You know, it was something, we were supposed to be competitors, but that never came into this part of it. So I always believe, smaller things like Sanjay Reddy supplies the feed for the horse. And of course, I talked about Doctor on all the support he has given. So for me, the school tie was everything about racing, you know, from the start all the way to Warhammer winning the Indian Derby. And that moment when you stand there and saying, how lucky can I be, was at that moment you're saying, I also realized I'm there because of all these other people and all these other connections that brought me there. A last point on why I feel Indian Derby is the epitome of a race or epitome of something to be winning. While we were walking out, Gautam and his wife Gayatri were walking in front. I and my wife Yashika were walking a little bit behind. And we walked through in Mahalakshmi where both, the punters are on both sides. They knew Gautam's name, they knew my name. Now, at the most we might have shown up for a picture in the paper. How did they know who Gautam was and who I was? In addition, they knew Gautam was more involved in Bangalore. And to me, they kept saying, we will see you in Mysore, we will see you in Mysore. And these were just average punters who had come there, you know, who knew they were so besotted with this and they knew so much about the horse. And they, I think, had such a good feeling for it that they knew who we owners were. And, you know, some guy came and gave me flowers and stuff like that. It was quite weird. It was really, really great. And that's when you realize that the people there, this is the passion for them. And for me to be on Lady Luck's coattails at that moment and glide through that moment, you know, was the highlight of my life. I mean, I hope I can, you know, have another horse that does well or, you know, wins a classic. But that particular moment, walking out and saying, this is it, you know, Warhammer, we have got it. We have the best horse in the country. So that was Warhammer's story here.
Maybe you should have a share with me.
I think we'll come to that, see, because, which I'm sure Sanjeev is going to talk about, you know, for all the luck and all of that. And I'm sitting right across Sanjeev, who must be having, I believe, the worst luck, you know, going in racing. You know, Sanjeev, you've got to tell the world about your stories and horses.
You said it better, Apu.
So tell us, Sanjeev, I mean, so, yeah, you know, your brothers won the Indian Derby in partnership with
long
Apu.
Before Warhammer and things, you know, all these beautiful legendary horses came in. When Dad had horses and, you know, we always wanted to win a Derby, never happened, won the Governors, won the Nizams, whatever. So I thought maybe if I become an owner, maybe I'll have a Derby winner. So soon after I became a member, I got my own horse, a share in Tammy Tunes. So all fingers crossed, not a bad looking horse, got in the gate, never got out. So I said, okay, no beginner's luck, went on to Admiral Hatsu. Now this one, good looking fellow, well bred, jumps out of the gate, but never went past the last but one horse. Preferred to stay there and finish there. Then the third one, okay, third time lucky. Hopefully this time a Derby winner or something. At least a winner, at least run the race, you know, something like that. So this one dies of colic before even we name it. So far luck has been really bad. But then again, never given. I said, let me give it one more shot. Motto of our school, let's go. So went with Jon Snow. So now Jon Snow used to blaze the track at track work, and my partner said, hey, Sanjeev, we're going to win the next race, man. You better be there. I can't come to my, so you go there on my behalf and whatever. Go there, rather frisky in the paddock. Like he's going to just jump out of the gate and just go start to finish. That kind of a look he would give in the paddock. So when the real race begins, stays 10 lengths back and finishes 10 lengths back also. I mean, never goes in front. So that's been the story of my life in racing. So this is when I said, I've got to stop it, take a break from owning a horse. Let's see if my luck changes. And then hopefully, Apu, if you still want to, you have you have a share in our horse together. I'm good with it. But think twice before you do it. That's all I have to say. That's my story.
This is in a lighter vein, and things. That's great, Sanjeev, that you've been a good sport. I mean,
but I still love
the
going to
amount
the
of
races.
stress and tension that there actually goes on behind the scenes. I think we should ask someone like Arjun and Anneka also. How do you deal with your stress? I mean, I know you sort of cross your arms across your chest and start pacing round and round in circles, and then you smoke those 7 cigarettes in 5 minutes. But that's in a lighter vein. But I mean, tell us.
Zen, like everyone deals in stress in their own way. But when I was starting off training in my early years, someone told me being a trainer is the most boring job in the world, because horses are creatures of routine. You just have to follow the routine. And I learned that, and I decided to adopt that. The only excitement we get is in that 2.5 minutes of running the derby and the lead up to it. Yes, morning workouts can disappoint you, can excite you. All these things happen. That's part of the routine and part of our job. It's really sad. The toughest part of the job is to call up the owner and tell him his horse is broken down. That, to me, is the most heartbreaking part of our job. The greatest part is winning the race. Winning graded races, winning great races, they're all part of it. Sorting out horses with problems to win races, like Sanjeeva's horse who never jumped out of the gate or ran detached. Probably they could win races. That gives you a different level of satisfaction to have horses to be able to do that. So it's a mixed bag, like in life, everything you have to take the good with the bad. And again, stick to it, never give in. That's what we're all here for.
Yeah, considering, you lose more races than one wins. I mean, anyone does.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a law of averages. I mean, you lose more races. So the highs are high and the lows are low.
Yeah,
but
the highs are
you get to
really
deal with
high
it.
and the lows are really low. And most times you lose races. Like in life, you get more disappointments than happinesses or happy moments.
Well, I'm going to come to Anneka now. You're married to this successful young trainer. You own quite a few horses. And can you tell us what is your sort of involvement with the sport?
I think, of course, first of all, being Neil's wife, I think my involvement is, I'm quite involved from the back. I do attend most race days, and I'm quite kind of bringing him when he gets very het up, he gets quite stressed, and he lets it out in his own way. There's a lot of excitement within the household as well with my father-in-law and my husband. But it's just about trying to kind of just calm the situation a little bit, being the listener, I think. Sometimes I might understand, sometimes I don't, but I'm just there to kind of listen and absorb and, give in my little piece of advice here and there and what to do. My involvement, of course, yes, visiting stables, seeing the horses. I haven't been a lot because of COVID recently, neither have I been racing for a while. But yeah, I think from the back, just kind of being there as a listening board and calming the situation. As an owner, yes, we own shares in certain horses, have had quite a few successes as well with those horses in derbies and guineas and things like that. So that is a lot of excitement. Neil, of course, takes all the decisions on, what he needs to do. But there is a lot of fun involved. But yes, racing is a great leveler. Lots of highs, low lows, completely low lows, and it's hard to kind of handle. But then you gotta, roll up your, pick yourself up and pull up your socks and wake up to a new day and move on. Yeah, that's the never give in attitude.
While you were talking of the low lows,
yeah.
I'm always think of this funny thing that happens when you get a hammering in the races.
Oh, yeah.
The best thing to do, blanket finish. Get to the blankets and finish.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. You just get on. I mean, you think you and I tell Neil, I said think it through. I mean, just like work it out of your system. Think it through, talk, and then he does that, and it's over. By 2 hours later, it's done, and it's just wrapped up, and it's into the new day.
I was keen to know because as we all know, Anneka's married to this rather maverick guy who, when he loses a race that he thought he'd win, he'd have a tantrum like a 4-year-old,
Yes.
And then when he's won a race, I mean, he's just overexcited.
Yeah.
And Anneka's sitting there quite stoically.
Very stoic. Yeah.
Trying to control
how
it.
do you
I
deal with
give
it
him
when
one
you
of those
get
looks
home?
like, Neil, get yourself together. But I think at the races, I'm very stoic. You don't see too much of expression, but I think you all have seen more expression with me today.
Right, so your motto, never give in, works at home as well.
Absolutely.
Now, many people believe there's a rampant use of drugs in our sport, whether it's performance enhancing or performance suppressing. What have you to say about that? I mean, you're the best place to tell us professionally.
Yeah, so there's no way that you can get away with the use of any drug as of now with the current scenario, because you have post-race testing, you have testing and training, and you have random samples. So you have all these checks and balances. Besides, I don't believe that there's anything that can turn a duck into a swan. Okay, so you can't, as of now, so we don't have any medicine. The horse is programmed to run up to a certain point, or he's programmed, I mean, that's his inherent capability because of his heart and lungs. So you can't give him anything that is going to make him run X plus Y. At best, he'll perform up to the limit of his ability. So drug testing is really, really sensitive, and I really commiserate with you guys because you are on sort of edge whenever a horse is tested. Because there are so many factors that go into it. There's contamination, there's feed contamination, there are clearance periods for certain medicines that are used during your training process, whether it's an antibiotic for an infection or it is some other injection that is used allegedly for various conditions that there are. So your testing as of now is at a picogram level. So just to put it simply, it's if you take a grain of sand, 1/300th of a grain of sand is what they can pick up as of now. And they want to go to the next level, which is a femtogram. So that is even more sensitive. So they will tell you, you had this for breakfast on 1st of Jan, and they will be right. So that's the level of testing. So I don't believe it's easy to get away with giving medicines or, performance enhancing drugs or depressant drugs and not get nailed.
So basically we observe zero tolerance.
So it's a zero tolerance. There's no sort of no leeway for anyone to use things and get away with them.
And if it does happen, then the trainer's license is on the line, they get punished.
They get severely punished.
It's a very well-regulated sport.
It's a livelihood which is gone. It's apart from that, there's a stigma because they don't say it's a medication infringement. They say it's a doping test, which is in a sense wrong. It's a little harsh.
We were in Mysore for the Invitation Cup, the first one that was held. Apu, you're on the committee there. And it was just so amazing that we found about 20 Lawrencians at a party in a matter of 2 minutes, and so we have a wonderful photograph of everybody there. And what do you think? I mean, this sport brings us all together and we build all these relationships.
Yeah, Zeyn, you rightly said, in 2 minutes we just saw 5-7 of them. Then we started gathering people. We ended up with about 20. We all got into a frame and took a picture of us, all of us in racing. Similarly, the kind of friendships we have. Pritham was 13 years senior to me. Nevill was a couple of years junior to me. Arun was a couple of years junior to me. Today we are best friends. We just build a totally different bond thanks to the horse and thanks to our school.
So, yeah, so I'm surrounded by the 2 trophies besides Anneka, of course. But these are my
3 beauties.
And the 2 inanimate ones on the 2 tables. Those are my crowning glories, and those were the 2 derbies. The one on the right is the Mysore Derby. The one on the left is the Kolkata Derby. And this is what everybody hopes to achieve in racing, because this is the pinnacle of success, and that is winning derbies. So Arjun was involved with both of them. So have you got anything to say about them?
They look lovely.
they certainly do.
Yeah, and the trainer doesn't get them. Only the owner gets them. So he, all he can do is admire it.
And I spent a lot of time over a lot of beers admiring them. And a lot of stories shared too.
So you got your fair share?
Yeah, I got my fair share. Definitely.
Can you withdraw that 13 years, please?
It's bad luck.
Right, guys, thank you all very much.
Never give in.
So I hope we have been able to give you a better insight into the sport that we're involved in. Yes, there is the glitz and the glamour and the celebrities and the parties, but trust me, behind the scenes, there is a lot of hard work. As they say, blood, sweat and tears. There's bound to be, because the stakes are high and so is the pressure. So for all you Netflix addicts and Formula One followers who've watched the series Drive to Survive, horse racing is no different. It has the same competitiveness, aggression, passion, politics, intrigue, and rivalries. So if you are looking for that adrenaline rush and want to get involved in the sport of horse racing, feel free to reach out to any one of us and we'd be more than happy to guide you through it.
Thank you very much, Zeyn. That was a very informative and interesting session. I have a question for you, actually. You have been involved in the Indian horse racing industry for a very, very long time. How has the Indian horse racing industry dealt with this pandemic?
That is a very good question, Kalpana. Very appropriate, and I'm glad you asked it. You know, the racing and breeding industry directly employs over 40,000 people and indirectly an equal number. You know, in 2017, with the introduction of GST, our industry was hit with a tax of 28% on turnover. That was a body blow. And our revenues plummeted from about 4,000 crores down to 1,600 crores. That's almost 60% over a period of just 18 months. You know, then with COVID and the lockdowns, racing came to a standstill for over 8 months and all revenue stopped. However, I'm really proud to say that despite the hardships the industry faced, not one employee was laid off. All salaries were paid, kitchens were set up, provisions and groceries were made available. Testing was carried out. And you know, more recently, since the release of the vaccine, the Madras Race Club, where, you know, Arun is also on the managing committee, every employee was vaccinated at the cost of the club. And I'm sure the other clubs are going to follow suit.
Zeyn, thank you so very much. That was phenomenal. What your industry has been doing for this during this pandemic, and in such a humane and sensitive way, it's really applaudable. I thank you, and I thank everybody who's been on this session for giving us so much information, insight, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And I appreciate you all for coming on OL Nation. And now to pass on to Rohan Shetty, who will close out the session for us. Over to you, Rohan.
Thank you, Kalpana. And wow, yeah, that was a super, that was really super, wasn't it? And just for the record, thank you once more for your input and your commitment to our program. And it goes without saying, I'm also thanking the rest of our working group. Thank you guys so much. The commitment of this industry to its sport and the tens of thousands of folks it employs is commendable for sure. What started out as a casual conversation between Kalpana and I, and later on Apana Subaiya Ganapati, has turned out to be a real eye-opener. Thank you, Zeyn, for taking the lead on this and literally corralling so many Lawrencians and putting together this outstanding event with all of us. Thank you so much. Managing 24 individuals across the country and beyond was a bit of work. It was a bit of a task, trust me. As was putting together all our different segments. Here, I would also like to acknowledge the tremendous input of Niyal Saad and his team, including Tarshia Datta and Mahabub. Not all Lawrencians, just friends of ours, close friends of Zeyn and the racing community. They have been working with us behind the scenes to deliver a slick product. Thank you once again, guys. It's a broad industry and we chose to break it down into a couple of specialities, with OL 11 this session focusing purely on the horse racing aspect. That said, I would also like to acknowledge all Lawrencians who have wholeheartedly given us their input. These folks are in show jumping, general equestrian activities, 3-day eventing, polo, nutrition, etc. Topics we intend to cover at some point down the line at a later session. Just to name a few of them, Adil Gandhi, Vindhya 1961, Rayan Irani, Vindhya 1976, Nikhil Yatiraj, Vindhya 1996, Som Somanna, Vindhya 1994, Sanjay Reddy, my classmate, Vindhya 1986, Pritham Basapa, Vindhya 1982, Yumna Java Nihari Singh Champak, 1998. I've just been told that we have several more OLs who are in racing and this industry. We were not able to connect with them. Murali Mahipal, DK, Nilgiri 1957, Mr. T. Gundan from the 50s, and Aryama Sundaram Aravali 1973. And to these fine folks who have been in touch with us right when we conceived this event, thank you so much for your participation and your contributions. The All Nation Working Group, of course, we look forward to hearing from you with your comments, suggestions, introductions. Just drop us a line. Our email is contact@ol-nation.com. I repeat, contact@ol-nation.com. And we will see you again at OL Assembly on the 8th of May, 5 p.m. India time, and of course OL Nation 12, which will air on the 22nd of May at 5 p.m. as well. Thank you for your support, and I wish all of you a safe and comfortable weekend. Goodbye.